Welcome to Do It in Durham 2021. Now in its 9th year, Do It in Durham is an event series that takes place during Global Entrepreneurship Week. It is Durham Region's own forum to celebrate, inspire, and support entrepreneurship. Stay tuned as we bring on our presenter. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here. My name is Teresa Shaver, and along with Andrea and Ashley from the BACD, we are so excited to have you here on our last day of Do It in Durham. It is Durham Region's celebration of Global Entrepreneurship Week. It takes place in 190 countries. There's something like 35,000 activities that happen in that week that are all around entrepreneurship. So we luckily only had 41 to plan, which takes enough work and energy of which Andrea and Ashley have done the most of the heavy lifting. So I wanted to say thank you so much to my team. They're amazing. I'm blessed to work with them every day. And if you're going to tag us, take photos, please use the hashtag Do It in Durham 2021 and GEW Canada 2021. I also want to thank our sponsors who helped us pay for this week. We give our speakers a little bit of money. By no means are they getting rich on it, but we are able to give them a little bit. We pay for advertising for this week, and we really just try and use the money to promote and support entrepreneurship. We have lots of different partners involved. And today I'm really excited to have Karen Kessler and Karen Collicutt from the Triad Group. They're going to talk about really how they are getting business done and how they're doing that. And I'm really excited to see what they're going to talk about. And I don't know if I've missed anything, but I'm going to hand over to the two of you and I'm going to mute myself. I'll be here. I'll be watching the chat box. And if you have any questions, anybody, please pop them in there. If you want to talk about your business, you can pop it in there too. It is quite normal. That's how we have the side conversations. So you can chat in the chat box, but also listen to the presentation. And we are recording it. So we will edit out some of the pieces and then continue with the conversation. So over to you, ladies. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Teresa. Karen and I have loved the connections that we've made this week. Karen and I both have connections inside Durham from our previous businesses. And one of the things I said yesterday morning, I'll say it again, the connections that I have inside Durham are deeper and more productive than many that I had when I was in Toronto before I moved north, right? You guys know how to connect, you know how to look out for each other. And I just love that kind of connection. So when we knew we got a chance to come and play with you guys this week, we were like, we are all in. This is where we want to hang out. So I love that. Today, Karen and I are talking about how our business really came to be and how we're doing things different, along with Jackie Stickwood, who wasn't able to join us today. Otherwise, you would have had all three of us. But we decided basically when the quarantine started to go in that maybe we wanted to play together.
Yes.
Right. So we all had our own businesses. We've been solopreneurs or had partnerships for a long time. And you know what? We did everything the way we were told to do it.
Yeah.
We followed instructions. We got mentors. We paid the big bucks, focused on sales, focused on the revenue. And every single one of us created businesses that were soul sucking, I think is the best way to put it, right? Like we did it the way we were supposed to do it.
Yeah.
And we decided if the three of us were going to do this, that it was going to be an experiment. We wanted to create so much space for ourselves to say, what if all the inklings we've got about how it's best for us to do business were right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we looked at how do we work interdependently. We wanted to experiment about actually following our own intuition when we made decisions. We wanted to figure out how can we weave the masculine and feminine together to create a business that we not only enjoyed doing, but was successful and allowed us to also have a successful life. So these were everything.
And be fun.
And be fun. Absolutely.
It had to be fun.
And be fun. So that was our goal. So our goal with you today is we want to share with you some of the biggest things that we've done to make this happen. And at the end, we're going to ask you, is there one of these things that you'd like to play with either more deeply in your own business or something that you know that maybe you want to try for the first time and see how that goes? Because that's our big curiosity is what was your biggest takeaway from that?
Awesome.
over to you.
So I'm always really curious about why people pick to come to a particular talk.
Yeah.
So if you would take a moment and in the chat, type in, why did you choose this one?
Yeah.
Why are you here? Why are you here? Why'd you pick this one?
You're busy, fabulous people.
Yeah,
this
and it's
is-
Friday. After a long week of lots of presentations, what was the reason that you showed up for this one? I'd love to see it. I don't fit inside the box. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's us.
And
yeah,
it's us.
yeah.
Yes. We love you too, Daniela. That's great. Oh, good. Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. New entrepreneur. Excellent. Expertise, advice. Yay. I want to learn how you set up the boundaries. Nice. We're going to talk about that for sure.
Important piece.
Yeah. With stuff. So how we as women do it. And it is a bit different. We've chosen to do things really differently this time around. Awesome. That's great. Anybody else?
If everybody has this or a piece of this, I think everyone's in the right place.
Yeah. Oh, need the energy you two have.
Happy to share.
You bet. And stay inspired. I love it. I love it. So the business world has traditionally been really male focused, male energy, masculine centered. And people who, from what we've seen, people who are doing sort of feminine energy businesses seem to not be getting the results and not being like making the money that they want. And so we started to explore ways of how do we weave them? Because we're real, like, to be clear, we're really good at the masculine deal on the business side. Like we can follow rules, we can make lists, we can do charts, we can do, like, we're good on all that stuff. And we know that we need the balance. And so we started to explore how do we weave the two together so that we could create a different experience and have a different outcome and have more fun and have more flow in our business. And so, so we started looking at, like, as we started having success with it, we started looking at how can we share some of this with other entrepreneurs?
Yeah, exactly. And it's been really interesting. We, along the way, have continuing to fine tune it because absolutely was an experiment.
Yes.
We've really gone from a place in our own business to being in isolation. I don't know how many of you can relate to this, where you put on the good face. You go up to networking and everything's great. Everything's so good. And please come and talk to me because I need a sale so bad.
Yeah.
So it creates this isolation when there isn't a way, as the feminine energy tends to do, is come together in collective.
Yeah.
Then to come together in truth. And when we're trying to do it in isolation in that piece, it really, the walls just get thicker and thicker.
Yeah.
And we seem to get further and further away from our own truth in that moment. We really started collaborating when we still had our own businesses at Karen's kitchen table normally. Yep. And we were just getting a lot out of both of us sitting there working together
on our own separate businesses.
Yeah.
But being able to say, hey, I'm working on this thing. Can you take a look at it with me? Or how do you spell received?
Exactly. I before E, except after.
Exactly.
So these are the ways that we sort of started playing with it. And we realized that having somebody else behind the curtain with you was so empowering, which before I would have said it would have been so scary to let anybody see that I was struggling, that it didn't matter what I was making, still felt always like it was a struggle.
Yeah. I feel like to see the duck with the feet going like mad under the water, right?
Exactly.
This is how it felt a lot of the time.
So once the quarantine started and we decided to do something together, we switched on to Zoom working together.
Yeah.
Which, because we got to the point where we really needed the collaboration.
Yeah.
And that was a really important job. So we like that so much, we created our own virtual workspace, so then everybody comes to work with us now.
Exactly. So
let's just pop into what we're going to
good one.
Cover
we have
today.
slides.
Yes.
Right.
So we've got some success principles we want to go through with you. We're going to talk about interdependence, what it is and how to do it. For a lot of people, it's not what you think it is. We have a piece of cake policy that we want to share with you because I think that's one way of how we do things that makes such a big difference.
Yep.
We're going to talk about how we feminine flow in a way that I don't know, empowering, productive, fun. Yeah. So we're going to talk about that. And part of that is boundaries.
Yes.
Boundaries actually weaves into a lot of these things.
Yeah.
And then we've got just some success habits that work really well for us. And you can choose which one of those you want to play with and experiment with a bit more.
Super. So we're going to start with success principles, and I'm going to stop sharing so we can actually see people.
I love that.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So your clients love you. You love your clients, right? Otherwise you wouldn't be doing what you're doing. Right. It's important. And when people get to the edges of their resilience, of feeling too full, of feeling like there's too much and maybe too many balls in the air or too many hats they have to wear, it's common to isolate and to try and sort of come inside and find some space to recuperate. And this is definitely what was happening with us.
Yeah.
Certainly when we were running our own businesses and just, yeah, we end up sort of being in our own little space and not going out to the world. When entrepreneurs tend to work in isolation, it creates problems. It reduces creativity. It really stops you from being the best you. And it's been made much worse during the quarantine because, we haven't been at the coffee shops or at the small business centers or at the co-work spaces. And so we kind of get into our own little heads and get our heads down.
Especially if your self-talk isn't very good.
Right.
If you're the only person that you're listening to is you putting yourself down all the time, it's no wonder.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. So you want to grow, and you maybe now some people are at the beginning, right? So you're like, oh my gosh, there's a bazillion things to do. And other people are like, I want to grow, but I don't actually have any more capacity, and I'm all by myself here.
Yeah.
And so it makes it hard to take on new ways of thinking or new ways of looking. So we're going to give you an alternative. When things feel tough and when you're feeling like your resilience is low, this is actually a time to reach out and to connect and to work with others. And so we're going to share that with you today about how we do it and some things that you guys can do.
Yeah, you don't have to go into business with other people
No.
the way we did in order to do this. This stuff works because now we're doing it with other businesses,
That's right.
with other people. And so it totally works. All right, cool. So one of the first things, there's 3 things that we need to have a little chat about so that the rest of it kind of has a place to go for you. And the first one is what we mean by attachment and detachment. Attachment comes in when you're really holding on to something really tight. And often there is a reason for that. There's some gain that you get from holding on really, really tightly to something. And detachment doesn't mean you don't care. We want you to think of detachment as more as holding something more lightly. Instead of holding it this way, I'm going to hold it in my hands. Yeah. Right. And that leaves us open to maybe exchange what we have for something that's more flexible or works better. The next thing is the idea of a weave and a collaboration. We want to talk a little bit about working with others, and it's important to understand that while we're weaving, you still get to keep yourself.
Absolutely.
You don't lose yourself in these situations. What you're doing is weaving, and think about it as weaving new cloth and new colors and new designs. Yes. And together creating more as you collaborate than you ever could have alone. And the other one is a little bit about the strength from vulnerability. So many more people have been reading Brené Brown and listening to her TED Talk. And so the idea isn't as foreign now for people to hear it. But I would think about how much have you internalized how your vulnerability is actually a sign of strength. The idea that you can sit down across from somebody, that you trust yourself enough to say, hey, this is my reality. This is what's going on for me right now, and allow someone else to hear it and allow someone to say, wow, you know what? That sucks. How can I help?
Yeah.
How can I be there for you?
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that there's any weakness in you or that you're a less than because of that. When you think about how being vulnerable makes you feel, realize the amount of strength requires to actually do that.
Absolutely. And think about how you feel when someone else is vulnerable with you, and recognize that that's what's happening on the other side when you choose to be vulnerable. And it's this give and take that's so beautiful. And it allows for more opportunity, more connection.
Okay, awesome. So let's dive. Do we have a?
Yes, we have another. Oh, geez, now I'm hidden. Here we go. All right. Okay, so, down here.
Yep.
I say I shouldn't be in charge of slides, clearly.
It's okay.
We just talked about success principles, and now we're going to talk about interdependence.
Perfect.
Okay, so interdependence is one of those things that I love to talk about.
It's your jam.
It is my jam. So interdependence is something that I didn't really get when it was first explained to me, because it didn't really seem like I understood, sort of understood collaboration. I kind of understood compromise, but I didn't really get how I was supposed to do this interdependence thing. And in fact, I went and worked with Franklin Covey for a period of time on a contract. And once I got in there, I realized that I was there so I could learn this piece. Because if you are familiar with the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, one of the things they talk about a lot, Stephen Covey talks about a lot, is the maturity model, right? You go from dependence when you're, think about it like a little kid, right? You're a little kid and you're dependent on your parents. They have to do stuff for you. They have to look after you.
That's why their smile is so awesome.
That's right. I've got somebody looking after all of my needs. It's so true. And then we grow and we want to do it ourselves, right? And you see this little kid growing into their own independence. And as a culture, we have been taught that it's our job to create independent kids, independent people, independent adults, which is awesome. Because we want people to be independent and to be able to handle their own selves, manage their own selves, their own emotional, mental, spiritual, physical worlds. It's not the end point. And I think this is what's happened in our culture is we've said, oh, everybody has to be independent, but independence is isolating.
It's like the teenager stage, right? The maturity.
That's right. It's like, I don't need anybody, I'm doing myself. And the thing is, when you actually move into the next stage of interdependence, this is where the magic happens. Now, here's the coolest thing that I learned about this. The only way you can create interdependence is to have 2 independent people come and work together. And that was like, I was like, oh, okay, now I'm starting to get it. Because if you have 2 dependent people or an independent and a dependent person coming together, what you get is codependence, which we don't want. That's not healthy, and it's not actually going to move you forward, right? 2 independent people come together and they create something bigger than what they could do on their own, something more than what they could do on their own.
Greater than the sum of its parts.
Thank you. I always mess that one up. Yes, greater than the sum of its parts. And inside of that, when you've got these 2 people coming together, the biggest intention that is required is a win-win approach. And so when we have this win-win approach, our goal is that I'm going to win out of this, you're going to win out of this. And in fact, the coming together is going to create a bigger win than either of us could do on our own. Now, the cool thing is that one person with a win-win attitude can create an interdependent relationship. So even if the other person doesn't really get it yet, you can guide them and draw them into an interdependent relationship by teaching them this win-win approach and giving them space to have a win-win outcome.
Just tell them how it's not a compromise.
Okay, yeah, this is really important. Yeah, so a compromise, people say, oh yeah, we're compromising, it's great. The problem with compromise is you actually give away each person has to give something away in order to come up with something that you're willing to share. And in interdependence, that's not what we're doing. We're coming together and we're creating something together that is that win-win. So it's not like you want it to be not a win-lose or a lose-lose, or it's important that both parties are winning and that you're creating something that's more. Yeah. Go.
Cool.
I think, oh, did you want me to do this one?
Yes, yeah, tell them about the piece of cake.
Yeah, okay. So this is one of the ways that we do interdependence here. And we started playing with interdependence before we started working together, but this business really was this sort of experiment in interdependence. I'm like, okay, if we actually come together and do this, is it actually better? Is it more?
It's interdependence on purpose.
Right. Yes. Yes. Instead of, because I think we all have been in places where we've done it accidentally and you're like, whoa, that was awesome. But to do it on purpose. So one of the things that we found in our business is there are things that I'm really great at. There's things that Karen's really great at. There's things that Jackie's really great at. And there are things, first of all, that I can do, but I'm not great at and I don't love. And this is sort of how it came together.
Because in our own businesses, we had to do it all.
Yeah.
We wore all 17 hats.
So we just decided that we could do everything, which, I did. I'm assuming you did.
Oh yeah, just made it happen.
Exactly. And so I was working on writing copy, and I'd always just written it because I had to, because it was my business, and I was really frustrated with it. And I said to Karen, this is really hard. I'm really frustrated with it. And she's like, well, why don't you just give me what you've got and I'll take a look at it. And she took 15 minutes and took what I had done and made it magical. And what we realized was if Karen had started with a blank page, she would have been, it wouldn't have worked. But because I had done my piece of cake, which is what needs to be said, the tactical, like the outcome stuff, but it always sounds boring when I write it. It's just really, but then I gave that to her and she did her piece of cake, which is taking something and making it awesome and making it friendly and accessible and all of this. And we realized we had actually developed what we call our piece of cake policy.
Yeah.
So we are not allowed to work on things that are not our piece of cake.
As soon as it starts to get hard and sticky, it's time to pass it over.
That's right.
So it took us together 30 minutes to do something which would have taken 3 to 4 hours for either of us to do after we refused to do it for a long time.
Yes, that's right. So this is a place where we really look at where do we get the joy, the fun, the excitement out of it? Where does that stop and where do we need to hand it off?
What's your piece of cake? What's the thing you would do all day and be the only thing you ever did in your business all day, every day, and never get bored of it? I want to see that in the chat. Who else we need to work with?
That's right. Who has pieces of cake that aren't ours?
We still have a few pieces of cake unassigned or unshared out to the world. So
when we were talking to our staff person, Rebecca, about this, she was working with a client of ours, and she's like, I don't know if I really helped helped her. And I said, what you did that was so easy for you, she could not have done. I said, that is your piece of cake. And you could see the light bulb. Said, oh, I get it now. Okay, cool. So coaching business. So just being able to get in there and really meet that. Oh, the MacGyver. I love that. The ideas and art. Cool.
Nice. The more that you can find your piece of cake and build what you do around that, and make sure that you've woven it in every day. One of the things that I remember when we were first discovering this, Karen, you actually felt bad for spending time on your piece of cake because it felt like a guilty pleasure. It felt like you were goofing off because you were having fun with it. Like, how bizarre is that as entrepreneurs, we feel bad about doing what we're good at and what we love to do?
Well, this is it. And honestly, I love spreadsheets, which seems bizarre. And honestly, I didn't realize that I love them so much until I got to do them and I didn't have to do them because I was the only one in my business.
Right.
And I started playing with them. I'm like, I love this. I love filling out forms. For me, that's stuff that I really love.
And now I don't feel bad asking her to do something that's hard for me. I feel like I've given her a gift and now I know I don't have to do it. So
that's
it's a total win-win.
It is a total win-win. I love it. Brainstorming solutions. Excellent. Getting, that's a thing. Rebecca, our staff, is really great at lateral thinking. So she can come up with all of the ideas going this way. I'm not so good at that. So I was working on something. I'm like, okay, Rebecca, come and look at this. And she went blah, 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 and added all of these things.
Nice. Landscaping. I love it. So keep thinking about that because finding that is important because your piece of cake gives you more energy during the day than it takes.
Liz asked a great question.
Oh, so with solopreneurs, so some of it's around the decisions that you make about what you actually do in your business. And then this is where the collaboration piece comes in. So we have other businesses that it's their piece of cake, and we've got a piece of cake that they need. So we can trade off 15 minutes worth of work for each other. This part of what we like to do inside the Big Blue Door virtual workspace is say to people, like, if you find somebody's piece of cake that isn't yours, then trade off 15 minutes of work.
Absolutely.
And save each other so much time and effort.
I have a friend who's a solopreneur, and she'll call me and say, I've messed up my Excel spreadsheet. Can you take a look at it? And honestly, it would take her 2 or 3 hours. And in 10 minutes, I can just fix first formulas. And I love it. It's fun. Yep. So think about who you have in your world that you could share pieces of cake with.
Yeah, exactly.
Great question.
And as long as you're trading back and forth,
yeah,
even if you invoice each other,
you bet,
but for the same amount, right?
Oh, research. Oh, see, this is good.
Nice.
This is good to know. I love that.
Research is a special skill.
It really is. And you have to be patient and you have to be curious. It's a neat combination of skills.
Okay.
All right.
We're going to dive now into how we really decided to bring our intuition into it and how we did that. So this includes moon cycles, readings, and boundaries.
Yes.
So we're going to do this piece, and we actually have a download for you around boundaries, because for some of you, this might be the first time you've ever heard this. So we wanted to make sure you had a worksheet if you needed it. So the first thing around moon cycles, we realized that we did need to honor the flow.
Yeah.
And we needed some way to check in with that. And the more research we did into what's going on with the moon cycles, it really helped us put us in a place where, do you need some? Are you okay?
Yeah, I was looking for this, but I'll just type it out.
Okay. What we're finding with moon cycles is that during the new moon, it's very inside time. Right? Yeah. It's quiet time. It's reflection time. It's time to really look at what's happening. And so we started designing our entire month around that where is the new moon in the cycle? And that's where we have our tactical meetings, where we just look at the data and what's been going on.
Yep.
And then getting closer to the full moon, we do a lot more speaking, and we're out in the world, and we do a lot more connecting with people externally. And we allow our business to breathe. And the cool thing is, it doesn't matter whether or not you believe the moon affects anything. I think the important part for us is that we were creating this flow, this breathing in our business of going internal and external, internal and external. And it allowed us to continue to check in to make sure that we were aligned.
Yeah, it's like a cue.
Yeah, exactly. Now the reading, same thing. We like
it does mean stuff.
I know.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. We believe that too. And at the same time, we're also big believers that whatever you believe in is what matters, right?
Exactly.
So go with that. The next thing is around the readings. We love to pull different kinds of cards at the beginning of our meeting so that we can check in with what those cards mean to us.
Yeah.
It's a great way if you're always finding that you're always leading with your head first. When you have to listen to what your own intuition is telling you, it makes a really big difference.
Exactly.
Cool. Now, boundaries. So in my experience in teaching boundaries, for the most part, women are almost never taught boundaries the way they're supposed to be. Guys or, women in masculine workplaces tend to get taught at work, but then never bring it home. And there's an actual flow to boundaries that is super important. So here's the magic. So the first thing is there's always an external request for your time, money, and energy. It could be the phone ringing. It could be the client asking you for something. So it's super important to actually recognize that there has been a request. Often we go straight to the decision around it and don't even recognize that someone's knocking on the door of our personal time, money, and energy. Then there's a whole internal process that needs to happen. And this is what we've put in the handout for you. So the very first thing is for you to go inside and say, do I have it? Do I have the time, the money, or energy? And if you don't, then you have no business saying yes.
That is the first one, particularly for women. Men are much better at that. They're like, yeah, no, I'm out. But women feel, totally generalizing, but we have a tendency to be like, yes. And then we get all grumpy about it.
Well, feminine energy wants to be in community.
Yes.
Right? They want to build more community, and saying no feels like I'm going against that, for sure. So we'll tie ourselves in knots in order to say yes. And how many of you, put this in the chat, have said yes to a client for something that you shouldn't have? You already set a boundary, said, I'm not going to answer emails at this time. I'm not going to text at that time, but you did it anyway. Or scope has started to expand, right? And then we just end up getting upset at that person. You know, how dare they? They know better. How dare they?
Yes. A few yeses coming in here. Yeah, for sure. I've done it.
We honor your truth. We've been there. That's why we know. So once, let's just say, for instance, you got asked for something, you decided, yes, I do have the time, money, or energy, or combination of there to give. The next question is, do I want to? I could have it and not want to give it.
I have a choice.
You have a choice.
Oh,
another mind blower.
Yeah.
It's yours, and you get to decide what you do with it. If you decide you do want to give it, you've got it, and you decide you want to give it, then under what circumstances? The person asking does not get to dictate how.
Right.
You get to decide. You can actually have a negotiation. So this is a masculine example, but I think it works really well. So because I think people can relate, they've seen it happen. So if you've got a pickup truck and your buddies want to help you move on Saturday, and you're like, you know what, I've got Saturday morning, I can be there at 8 o'clock and I'm good till 11. And then if you happen to get there at 8 and they're not ready to move, the guy leaves.
Pretty much.
Sorry.
It's like,
or he'll stick around and do whatever, and
drink coffee, and
then at
whatever.
11, done.
Yeah.
The feminine, on the other hand, tends to just, you know, pitch in, help with packing, let's get you go, is there to 3 o'clock in the afternoon fuming.
Yeah.
So we actually get a chance to say under what circumstances. When it comes to our clients, the same thing. Like, often if I've got clients, and my tendency is to allow for people to just call me and come into my world.
Yeah.
So I include 2 SOS 15-minute phone calls inside their coaching contract when I was coaching.
Yeah.
So that gives me the ability to say yes and say, you've got one more.
Right. And to cut it off. If,
right. Because I want to be available. I want to be seen as available. But otherwise, you do it once and then it happens again and again.
Exactly.
Because we teach people how to treat us. So that's the important piece. Once you've decided, then you go out and you tell the person, and it's important to communicate what it actually is that you're agreeing with. And if you do those things every time someone has made a request of your time, money, and energy, things go so much more smoothly.
Yeah.
People appreciate you saying no if you're not the right fit. If it's not your piece of cake and you don't say no, then they're kind of left with this misfit a little bit. And if you say no early, then they get a chance to go ask somebody else, and you might suggest somebody else.
Absolutely. I've done that lots of times.
Yeah.
So let's just keep moving on these, because I want to show you what we have for you. So we've done that step. We're talking right now about weaving feminine flow. And here is the boundaries workbook that we've got for you. So it's called Dialing Down the Drama with Boundaries. This is the link, and I'm putting it in the chat right this second. So when you go, you just have to put in your information. It'll come to you. Please remember to confirm your email, or it won't show up in your inbox.
Yep.
So confirm your email, then the download comes in and you're ready to rock and roll. And it's several pages. It walks through the exercise that Karen just talked about. And it actually gives you a little chart to look at some of the places in your world that you might be practicing this.
Exactly. Normally, if we're not so good at boundaries, then we attract boundary breakers into our world. Mm-hmm. The people that know that we either don't say no or say no and then end up saying yes anyway. Yep. So who in your world are your biggest boundary breakers? If you needed to go have a conversation to sort of set things straight and let people know there's a new dance, there's a new tune in town, and that you won't just be saying yes all the time, who is that? Is it your clients? Our family is normally our biggest boundary breakers, because that's where we learn the most in our world.
Yep.
And
it used to be my sister.
Yeah.
We've sorted it, but it was, she would ask me for things and I always felt obligated because she's busy and she's got the kids and she's a da da da. And I've been able to create those boundaries that have been created a much more loving and giving relationship. I actually give her more than I did before, and I don't feel bitchy about it.
Well, she also appreciates you more
She
because
does.
you said no sometimes.
Exactly.
Right?
So when I do say yes, she really appreciates that. And then, so it's really impacted our relationship positively.
Yeah. For me, it was me. I was my own biggest boundary breaker.
Yeah.
I would say something was going to happen and then I'd let it go in favor of what everybody else needed.
Right.
So that was the biggest place for me.
So yeah, please go and grab that. It's a great little workbook and it'll walk you right through it.
Yeah. So please listen to your intuition when it tells you need to say no. Listen to your intuition when it comes to where you need to be in your business and the decisions that you need to make and whatever it is you need to do to take that time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really important. And it's one of those places where I think for me, I've needed to tap back into who I am in order to be able to tell what is my head and what's my heart, and be able to listen to both.
Yeah. It's part of the weave, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So, question coming in.
Oh,
How did you work out what is the allocation of work and payment with each other? What were those boundaries? You mentioned what you each did, but how you decide on the mutual contract?
oh, good question. So we actually are in business together now. So now it's not about sharing contracts, but we do have it with other people. And before we started this business together, we did work for each other in our businesses. And so, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So really big on exchanging invoices.
Yeah.
So we'll decide in advance what needs to get exchanged, and then we'll both invoice for it.
Really important inside of that is to exchange something that is of equal value.
Not equal time.
Yes, because my time on this particular project might be less than Karen's time on the project she's working on or the task that she's doing. So yeah, a lot of it is around looking at, what can I offer and what are they offering, and yes, exchanging invoices, paying each other for those times, and recognizing, certainly for Karen and I, we've been friends for a long time, and recognizing where we're in, hey, do me a favor as a friend, and where we're in, help me out as a mentor, and where we're in, pay me for this thing because this is my piece of cake.
So as part of the boundaries is knowing what hat we were supposed to have on.
And sometimes it was like, oh, I've got this hat on and I'm asking you this question, and we would be that direct about it.
Yeah. And if there's part of the boundaries, part of the agreements we have is that if there's confusion, we just call a timeout.
Yeah.
Like, what hat am I supposed to have on right now?
Right.
So we didn't have business discussions inside your she shed.
No, absolutely not. That is not for business.
Right. So there's just a certain place and a certain time for things.
Yes.
And so if there's a lot of back and forth with people, it's important to set those up and set up the working relationship as if it's a cherished thing.
Yeah.
Right. How do you set up the agreements? And the beautiful
and
thing,
the friendship.
And here's a little bonus for you. People are humans. And even if you set up a really clear boundary with a consequence, and somebody might step over it because of whatever's happening.
Yeah.
So here's the recovery on that. This will help you be willing to set boundaries. When someone gets close to a boundary or they've stepped over it, the first question is, are you aware that we had an agreement on that point? And they're like, oh, right.
Right.
Are you aware you just broke the agreement? Right. And are you willing to remake it?
Because sometimes this has happened to me, and sometimes I actually didn't realize I broke the agreement.
Right.
And when the questions come to, I've been like, oh my gosh, I'm like immediately want to remake the agreement. And sometimes it's like, oh, you know what? That agreement's not working for me anymore.
Right. So let's have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
So it takes you out of the situation that can be really hot in that moment and turning it about the agreement.
Yeah.
And so that works really well too.
Yeah.
So just
I love that.
Yeah. Avoid assuming anything when you're working with others.
You know what assuming does.
Make an ass of you and me. Right. So it's important to make sure that you've written it down. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're working together, and check in often. So that's part of what we do at the new moon is check in. How are things working?
Not receiving the confirmation email.
There might be a short delay, so we'll see. We'll have a
Yeah.
look at that into the campaign, Daniela. Thank you. If anybody else knows that they want it, and then you can just put your email in and we can just make sure we send it to you. That works
just
as well.
pop your email into the chat.
Okay, so let's go on then to, let's go through the rest of what we've got here, because we want to open up for questions and have these deeper discussions with you, because you guys have so much information and wisdom that you can share with each other, and we would love to get some as well.
Super. So success habits. The very first one is listening to your intuition. So whether that is tapping into your own rhythms, whether it's doing readings with cards, there's lots of different ways. I saw someone asking about how do you figure out your moon cycle during, if you're postmenopausal. We actually follow the actual moon.
Yep.
Like the big one in the sky. And so that's the moon cycle that we're following.
And there are people out there that teach specifically how to weave into your own.
Absolutely.
I don't have that specific answer for you.
Oh, good. Irina got it. So
okay, good.
Yeah.
So yeah, just we hooked into the actual moon, so it didn't matter if we were on different cycles, because there's 3 of us, although we tend to sync over time.
We do.
Okay.
We do. Okay, so the first one is listening to your intuition.
Yeah, and then obviously those boundaries with yourself and with others, make agreements. Get them down on paper, because it allows you to relax and be more vulnerable when you know that you've got the container to have conversations in.
Yep. Third success habit is the piece of cake policy, is finding your own piece of cake and working with others and helping to connect in with their piece of cake.
Yeah. And the other one is creating Team Awesome. So whether you're a solopreneur or whether you're in a business or even working for someone else, Karen and I have just published a book that's on the way from the printers right now. But one of the exercises was creating your Team Awesome, right? Yeah. Who are the people you can be vulnerable with, who actually have earned the right to hear your shame story? Yeah. For you to be able to come to them and say, this is where I am, this is what's going on, and they're going to hold space for you. You want to have at least 5 people in your world that you can go to.
Yeah, and also people who will truly celebrate with you.
Yes.
Like be really as excited for you, and make sure that you're as excited as you should be for your own celebrations. I
used to feel bad about celebrating the money I made because the person I was talking to maybe hadn't had the same success, and I didn't want them to feel bad. So I'd keep it all inside. So it's important to have people that can handle your success and willing to celebrate with you to that point.
You bet.
Excellent.
You bet. Okay. So for success habits, we want to know which one you guys are going to tap into first. So type it in. So listening to your intuition, boundaries, piece of cake policy, or building your team awesome. So just type it into the chat. Which one are you going to action on first?
While you're doing that, I'll just say that, we really had a good go at trying to do it alone.
We did.
And
we were doing a great job at doing it alone.
And it got easier when we started collaborating, even while we were still solopreneurs.
Yes.
Like it really did make a difference. Sure. And I think that because of that, when we saw the opportunity for Jackie and you and I to come together and do something together, it felt so good to be able to do that, to lean into it. And we just continue to experiment. We continue to enjoy it, continue to connect into other people that want to play this way too. Yeah. It makes a really, really big difference. And we're just excited for what we have next.
You bet. You bet. Oh, cool. Lots of people are doing. Which one, Rosanna? Which of the success habits? Pick one to start with. So you've got boundaries, piece of cake, building team awesome, listening to your intuition.
Nice.
That's cool. That's great. And awesome. Go, Rosanna. That is great. This is, I love this. I love when people have like, okay, here's what I'm going to this is where I'm going to start.
Yeah. Ask us anything.
Yeah. We've got some time here. Ask us anything. It could be about what we've talked about or something entirely. We're open.
We are an open book. Ask us whatever you like.
We had I'm just going to flip back. There were a couple of, looks like people are getting the download. So that's great. And if not, then we'll make sure you get it.
Daniela wouldn't get a confirmation email.
Oh, because you're already in the system, Daniela. Right. You already in a system. That's great. So let's see.
Reese, is it okay for people to unmute and just ask us their questions? That might be even easier than typing it.
Yep, she's gonna do that. That's great.
1 second. Someone else also asked if we can save the chat. So for security, we uncheck that ability because people can save chat and all the private messages that people might save to each other. So I guess the rule should be just know that when you put anything in the chat that everybody can see it. So it's one of the reasons we haven't enabled it. And I'm now trying to look to see if I can save it, and it doesn't allow me to save it either. But let me unmute everybody or do the unmuting. Okay, so I've turned on, you're allowed to unmute yourself if anybody wants to ask questions. Go ahead.
We love questions. Or a comment on something that stood out for you or something that you want to take away and action right away. Let us know what email you to, yes, Liz, or you can, you can email us. So here, let me go to the next slide, and there's our email addresses. There we go. If you didn't get a confirmation, and send us an email, we'll make sure you get the download. That's for sure.
Yeah, boundaries is probably the foundational piece that everything sits on.
It's true. And it's something, it is a skill. So this is one of the things, I was not good at boundaries. I was the family peacekeeper. I was the one who made sure, I'm the youngest of 3 girls, and my job was to keep everybody happy. And so it took me a long time to understand how personally powerful boundaries were, and actually how much they improved the relationships that I was in.
Yeah, it was a gift. In fact, I think that it was because even starting the new business, we found that we were overreaching in places where we had agreed not to. It's one of the reasons that we had to share this. We detached from the regular calendar in all ways that we could.
Pretty much.
So the moon cycle actually goes beyond just the moon. So because it is 29 days-ish, so we actually plan and do all of our strategic planning and all of our delivery based on the moon cycle. So it's roughly 4 weeks, and we call it a period. And 4 periods is a cycle. So we don't do quarterly planning, we do cycle planning. And then 4 cycles is a giraffe. Because that's roughly how long a giraffe will gestate before it delivers. So we know going into every giraffe, what are we gestating? What are we creating? What are we birthing? And so that becomes our overall focus. And then we have a focus for each cycle, and we get together and look at how did the last cycle go, and where are we, and touch in, because we found that the quarterly planning was too much pressure. It was too much. It didn't allow us to unpack and just allow the cycle to sort of open itself. We really started pushing back against the pressure deadlines. And we also became detached from the how things were going to happen.
Right. Yeah, it's and just in the last couple of periods, we have started meeting for a couple of hours on the new moon. And so it's what do we call it? Our new moon
tactical. It's a new moon tactical.
It's got a good name. I can't remember.
Oh, I can
but what we do is we get together, and so this is essentially every 4 weeks. So, but on the new moon, which is our come inside time, it's our, as Karen says, our inside baseball time.
Inside baseball time.
It's a new moon traction. We do these, there we go, new moon tractions. So again, we just started this. I think we've had 2. But what we found is it's been super powerful, because it has allowed us to really stay in the flow of our business. It really helps us stop at the new moon and take a look inside the business, inside ourselves. We pull cards, we do a reading, we do feedback on the previous period.
Yeah, what went well?
Yes.
What we want to see more of, and overall, what did we love?
Yes.
And then we also talk about our feelings.
Yes.
That was new for me.
That was new.
It took some getting used to.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at the feelings, Karen. so much. So yeah, so this has been a huge shift for us. Oh, you're pulling up the calendar.
I am.
Okay, cool.
This
So
one?
yeah. And yeah. Okay, so we'll show you. This will help. I know we've got a couple minutes left, and please feel free to ask questions if oh, and Andrew wants a bit more about the piece cake.
Absolutely.
Cool. Okay. So yeah, this is what a giraffe looks like in our world.
Yeah. So cycle 1, cycle 2, 3, and 4. And so we know that even through the cycle, it starts off slow and expands through and then ties off on the other end. And then that also happens inside the cycle, and it also happens inside so there's this breathing that's happening inside the business. It happens period to period. It happens inside the cycle, which is 4 periods, and then it happens within the giraffe, which is 4 cycles, which is
yeah. Oh yeah, new moon to new moon. Yeah.
Exactly.
We start new moon and we finish new moon.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And so we finished one whole giraffe already.
Yep.
And we are in cycle 1 of giraffe 2 inside period 2.
Yeah.
And then that's how our internal reporting goes. So the only thing that's holding us to the calendar is the Canadian Revenue Agency.
Pretty much.
When they want their HST and their corporate filings and all of that.
And that silly bookkeeper wants monthly stuff.
Oh, the bookkeeper, so entrenched in the calendar. But we just found that detaching from the calendar still kept us, we still needed a calendar.
Yes.
We still needed to track time because it was a weaving of the masculine and feminine.
That's right.
But we needed to find a new way to do it that created more flow and creativity for us. And this has worked beautifully.
Yeah, it as much as anything for us, it's been touch points for us to rewire ourselves away from just the masculine. And we don't want to ditch all of that. That's like, all of that is awesome. We want to weave the two together.
Yeah. Andrea said boundaries helps everyone to take things less personal. Absolutely. This is the detachment. This is the neutrality that allows us to work so well together when it's not personal. It's about our mutual success. It's a completely different way to do that.
Yeah.
Can you explain the piece of cake a little more, please? There is a level of mastery that comes with things. And the more we enjoy things, the more we find out the cool and interesting ways to do them. Yeah. So we tend to have a lot more experience in them. I think most people have heard of the 4 stages of competence. The first time you go to look at something, it's like, oh, how hard could that be? I can do that.
Easy.
It'll take me 10 minutes and 10 hours later, you're still, because as soon as you try something, you move into the fact you become conscious of your incompetence. And then you struggle and struggle and struggle. And then if you've got a mentor, it can go faster. And then you move into conscious competence, which I can do it as long as I focus entirely on it, still energetically and time draining. And then you move into mastery. So our piece of cake are the things that we've gone all the way to mastery on, which is why we know how they work. Yeah. We know when it might be going off track, and we're just really good at it. And to the point where we enjoy it. It feeds our confidence, and it's a really easy favor to give to somebody else. Yes.
Daniela's
how hard could that be? And the thing is, the people out there trying to sell to you are really good at telling, oh, it's going to be easy.
Yeah.
And so you buy into that, and then you hit a wall.
Yeah.
So if you've got people in your world that have these skills, hang on to them.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So let's give people time to go and get a cup of tea before their next session.
Yes.
This was so much fun. We love coming to do this. We really appreciate you connecting and engaging with us so much. It really makes a big difference. Please feel free to connect in with us. You'll get our download if you've gone in and signed up for it. And just a couple of shout outs for stuff that's happening this week. I know that Do It in Durham is doing a drop-in at the Small Business Center. And so if you're in the area, go and see them. And then big shout out to all the sponsors. We really, really appreciate being here, being invited to speak. We had a ton of fun, and you guys are awesome.
Thank you so much. I'm busy just typing in the chat box to both of you as well. I just want to say thank you. I love working with the two of you. Appreciate you sharing your energy, your time, your knowledge with everyone. And Look forward to working with you in the future again. And everybody else, look forward to seeing you. Hopefully you can make it to the event tonight, the wrap up at 4:30. We're going to do wrapping up with the mayor of Whitby, so Mayor Don Mitchell, and then we're going to have some giveaways, and we're also going to do some speed networking. So if some of you tried that out on Wednesday for the lunch, you get matched with each other. So we'll be doing that again. So hope to see you. It's only an hour, so it'll be quick, and then you're out of there to enjoy the rest of your Friday.
Thanks,
All right.
everyone.
Thanks.
Take care, everybody. Have a good one.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank you for being a guest in this presentation. If you would like to book an appointment with us here at the Business Advisory Center Durham, just follow the information right on the closing slide, and we look forward to seeing you.